Welcome to Municipal Affairs. A recent Fraser Institute report says that Canada's municipalities have seen steady and substantial fiscal growth. From 1990 to 2023, local government revenues rose by more than 30% in real per capita terms, outpacing both inflation and population growth. Yet, despite this growth, local government's slice of the fiscal pie has been shrinking, especially as federal and provincial budgets have surged in post-COVID era. Meanwhile, the key question today, in today's episode, is the money being spent wisely? Are municipalities delivering the value that Canadians expect and deserve? And more importantly, are they being asked to do much more with too little? As responsibilities like housing, public transit, social services, and emergency response increasingly fall to local levels, municipalities often find themselves at the front lines of major national and provincial challenges without the fiscal tools to match. So today, we're sitting down with someone who knows this reality firsthand, Tyler Gandam, President of Alberta Municipalities and the Mayor of the City of Wetaskiwin. We'll talk about whether municipalities are truly in control of their own fiscal destiny, what spending wisely means in today's complex environment, and whether the current provincial and federal approach to local governance is fair or leaving municipalities to carry more than their fair share. So stay with us, as you will not want to miss this important fiscal episode. From the smallest village to the largest city, across every region of the province, Alberta Municipalities represents the communities where over 85% of Albertans live. AB Munis provides a united voice for 265 of Alberta's 330 municipalities, including summer villages, towns, cities, and specialized municipalities. As Alberta's largest municipal group, AB Munis listens to municipal leaders and advocates for solutions to their common issues. Additionally, AB Munis supports local governments by providing services specially designed to meet their operational needs. And they bring their members together regularly so they can share ideas and information so that their communities can thrive. Check out Alberta Municipalities at abmunis.ca and follow them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, now called X.
Tyler, thank you so much for sitting down with me. A very simple question to kick off this entire interview. Do municipalities spend their budgets wisely?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that municipalities do is operate on very tight budgets. There are hundreds of municipalities across the province. Each of us have our own needs. There are things that I would need in Wetaskiwin that the city of Camrose, who's only 25 minutes east of me, wouldn't necessarily need. And so I think it's really important that especially the community gets involved and engaged during the budget process. But no question, municipalities spend wisely.
Over the last 4 years, municipalities have, and I say this as nicely as possibly, been raising taxes because the infrastructure challenges, social services challenges, and that has led some people, even the Fraser Institute, which recently just released a report, to come out and say that while you are collecting your money, the services have not increased. The services and the resources that those tax dollars are going to are not being spent wisely and are not getting better service for the amount of money that municipalities are collecting. How do you challenge that?
I'd say it's a pretty blanket statement. Like I said, each municipality has their own needs. Not understanding what a need is in one municipality versus another. To say that they're not spending it wisely or that levels of service haven't changed or aren't improving. Give me some examples where that isn't happening, because I can give you examples where it is happening. Just my own small community of 13,000 people, we are responsive to the needs of our community. And while we might not get it right every time, or we might not be addressing the levels of service that some people want in the community, overall, we're addressing the needs in our community. And you talked a little bit about infrastructure and social needs in the community. if you look at the level of funding that we've received as municipalities for infrastructure funding from the province historically to what we're getting now, it's substantially less. And if we're talking about social services, there are a number of things that municipalities are looking after right now that isn't in our mandate, that we shouldn't be looking after, but are forced to because there are gaps in those social programmings that are not being met or filled by the province or the federal government.
So that brings up a good point, because that was one of the crux of their opinions, was that the municipalities are going so far outside their lane and they're no longer dealing with the issues that municipalities should be dealing with. Now, I would agree with you that municipalities are forced to pick up the gap because the federal government and the provincial governments are abdicating their responsibilities. But why does it fall to the municipality to do that? Because you are asking the province, you're asking the federal government for more money to fix infrastructure, but you're taking on responsibilities that you have no mandate to take on.
Because they aren't being taken on.
But why should it fall to the municipality?
Because we're the closest to the people. So when I go to the grocery store and I see the social problems that I have in my community, I can either continue to turn a blind eye that has been done in the past or start to address it. And we did just that. We started with a warming shelter about 6 years ago, definitely not on a municipality's mandate, which turned into now it being run from within the municipality and its administration, to having to find contractors to run a homeless shelter, a temporary warming shelter, to we're at a point now where we're getting a permanent shelter being built in the community, and it is not being run or financed by the municipality, which is exactly where we needed to be. But for a number of years, that wasn't the case because those gaps weren't being filled by the province or by the federal government. So yeah, absolutely.
But if you don't do it, and I apologize to interrupt, and I'm not trying to be combative here, but I think it's an important conversation that a lot of people are having right now, particularly heading into election. Are municipalities doing what they're supposed to do? Because you're saying that the province is abdicating their responsibility by not doing it, or the federal government.
In some cases, yeah.
In some cases, yes. Okay, I'll agree with you on that. But if the municipality doesn't do it, then shouldn't the province then pick it up? Or are you saying that if the municipality doesn't do it, no one's going to do it and it's going to get worse?
So the case that it was in Wetaskiwin is that it wasn't being dealt with, and so we started to deal with it. But now we're at a point now where the province has stepped in and is looking after the responsibility of those social needs in our community. So providing shelter, food, water, being able to have a shower, washing your clothes, those basic human needs that everybody's entitled to, weren't being addressed or being taken care of, and now they are. And it took the municipality having to take that on, because we could have for years, decades, Wetaskiwin has seen a high social issue need in Wetaskiwin, and we started to address it. And because we started to address it, because we were able to show the province the needs that we have, they were able to come in and then help us with that. And so now it isn't necessarily a municipal issue. We still do have to deal with the policing side of it, whether it's through our CPOs or the RCMP, but it's getting better. And so are our crime severity index stats. So are the calls for service with the RCMP and our EMS. So are the number of people who are visiting the hospital with undiagnosed, untreated medical needs. So there's that ripple effect of how these things not being addressed impact a community. But then you start to see it where you're not sitting in a waiting room in the ER for hours because they're dealing with somebody else with untreated or undiagnosed medical needs. You're not having to wait or not get a police response to a 911 call or a complaint call to your home because they're dealing with other issues within the community, which are often social issues. Now getting that higher level of service through policing, through EMS, because some of those social needs have been addressed.
Is it fair? Is it the current model that we are currently under, where the downloading of responsibilities or the abdication of responsibilities on to municipalities, is it fair to the municipalities? And in essence, is it fair to the residents as well? Because residents get their property taxes, they all just got them, and we're heading into an election, and there are going to be a lot of people saying, oh, the municipality, the mayor, the council have gone way too far out of their lane. Is it fair?
It is what it is, whether it's fair or not. Yeah, it is. Because I don't think that when you still have gaps, and so let's take something that is under the municipal mandate and say roads are crumbling, sidewalks are crumbling, and a municipality is choosing not to address it. That then becomes an election issue. And people will complain all the time that infrastructure is not where it needs to be. My city has the worst potholes. My city has the worst snow clearing policy or work, their level of service that's being done. No matter where you are, you're going to have people that are unhappy with the level of service that they're receiving. But it is what it is. And I think that that's why we have an election cycle of 4 years. If your current council isn't meeting the needs of you as an independent resident, you have the opportunity, first and foremost, to run for council and be the change that you want to see, but also support those people that have the same mindset as you and the priorities in that community. And it's really important that I think communities are led by decisions made by people who live in the community, because they are the ones closest to the people. They are the ones that are going to hear it at the grocery store or out for supper on needs in the community. And that part is fair. What you're able to do with it, and of course the limitations that you have as an elected official, being only one vote out of however many members of council you have, you still need the majority for that to go forward. So no matter what the mayor thinks or wants, if he doesn't have the number of people on his council to support that initiative, it's not going to happen.
So how do municipalities balance that? Because if the municipality has the responsibility to look after infrastructure, parks, facilities, and they are taking on responsibilities of homelessness, which are not in the municipal jurisdiction, how do you balance that? Because you can't continuously go to the taxpayer and say, we need to increase another 3%, another 4%, because we're having more services this year that technically are the province's responsibility, but we have to do it because if we don't, we're going to hear about it and you're going to be upset even more than what the 3% is going to be.
And that's why communication is so important. Understanding why taxes might be going up, or the increased level of service that an administration or the RCMP or your police of jurisdiction or your CPOs, things that they're having to deal with. And if they do fall outside of your municipal mandate, educate your community, educate your business owners and your residents to make sure that they are also lobbying and advocating to the provincial and federal government on the needs that you have in that community.
Is the province hearing it, though? Is the federal government and the province hearing it? Sorry, I don't want to continue to point at you, but I just want to make sure that, because you've mentioned that the federal government and the provincial government have both sort of not taken up their full responsibility of what they should be looking after, and I just want to make sure I'm not pointing just to the province, but also to the federal government.
No, absolutely. And I think the way that you look at it in terms of your residents' needs, so these are priorities for this number of residents in your community, I think is no different than elected officials, whether it's through our association or through FCM, and doing that advocacy work with the federal government, them having to hear that those are the priorities for municipalities. And affordable housing is definitely one of them. As quickly as Alberta is growing right now, we're seeing firsthand that it's tough to find housing, let alone affordable housing. And if you're looking across the country right now, Alberta is one of the cheapest places to come and build a home or buy a home, which is why I think we're seeing such an influx of migration from inside of Canada. And so I do believe that both the federal and provincial governments have roles to play in that, but so does the municipality. If we're going to be expanding our municipal boundaries or the footprint that we sit on, we have to be ready for that growth too. But it's got to be a partnership, and both the province and the federal government have to understand the impacts and the pressures that we're facing in terms of extending our infrastructure. So water and wastewater are the two basic ones. But then policing, fire, making sure that there's adequate healthcare in the communities while they grow. We're seeing unprecedented growth in our communities right now, and it's putting a huge strain on our municipalities. And if we don't have partnership from the three orders of government, understanding where those pressures are coming from, then we're going to struggle. And while it looks good on paper to go from 4 to 5 to 6 to even 10 million people in Alberta, that's fantastic. But if they don't have a good quality of life here, then it's going to fade pretty quickly. And in 25 or 30 years, we're not going to be the province of choice.
In the report of the Fraser Institute, it says that municipalities are sitting on a chunk of money, but they're asking for more money from the province and the federal government all the time. Are you sitting on a big chunk of money? And can you tell people who are listening to this or watching this that municipalities are not running surpluses just for the sake of running surpluses.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't. We have to run a balanced budget, right? So we're showing very clearly what we're budgeting for in a coming year, what those funds are going to be used for, and then audited at the end of the year to make sure that we were where we were supposed to be. And if there are surpluses, what are we doing with that surplus? Does that turn into a tax reduction next year? Are we supporting some of our reserves that we have? Again, Alberta Municipalities represents 264 municipalities across the province. Take a look at what the smallest level of reserves set are for a municipality all the way up to the highest, and then balance that against what their annual budget is. And is there a municipality that has hundreds of millions of dollars or $1 billion in reserves that they maybe shouldn't have? Then absolutely we should be looking at why they're taxing the way that they are. But I don't see that across the province as being the norm. I think it's the opposite, is that municipalities are scraping by to make sure that they're providing the levels of service that their municipalities expect. And again, we're not going to meet that level of service expectation all the time, but
one of the big things that I often hear from mayors across Alberta, and I think I've even heard you say it, so I'm not, if I haven't, I apologize for putting words in your mouth here, but there's only one taxpayer. And if you ask the province, you're asking the same taxpayers that are in your community. If you ask the federal government, you're asking the same people in your community. What is the reasoning for asking the province and the federal government to give you more money? Because they're going to have to collect it somewhere, and that means that they're going to have to collect it from the people. So we're still hurting the people that are in our communities, aren't we?
And I don't think it's not hurting, right? We're not trying to hurt or punish a taxpayer. We're trying to provide that level of service.
But people are struggling.
Absolutely, they are. Yep. And again, we have to have those expectations of what that level of service is. While things were fantastic, or during an oil boom, or great times in the province, there's probably very little thought in terms of what a municipal tax bill is. But I would argue that if you talked to the average person and said, what do you pay in federal tax, what do you pay in provincial tax, and what do you pay in municipal property tax, they could probably tell you within $100 what they paid in their property taxes. But very few would be able to tell you how much they paid in provincial or federal income tax. And we are a very small portion of the amount of tax that is collected by the residents. And so it comes down to prioritization. Municipalities have to do it through their budgeting process, which, by the way, is completely public and open.
Even though people don't show up.
Exactly, but it's still there for that opportunity. And so are the audited financial reports, making sure that a municipality is operating above board. Our MGA and Municipal Affairs looks very closely at making sure that municipalities are viable and that they are able to continue to turn the lights on. And in some cases, they're not. And we've looked at viability reviews across the province now. And I think that we need to take a closer look at that in terms of what are you offering? Is there a better way to provide these services for our residents? And where ultimately, where is that money coming from?
We talk about the services a lot, and even in the report, it talks about the services that municipalities are delivering. Now, I'm going to take you at your word that they're offering services, but are the services that we're providing only there because the municipalities are increasing funding to those services? We talk about FCSS, we talk about the pool being open 24/7, or as much as it can be. Because of what happened over the last 5 years with the global pandemic, and the municipalities started to offer more, so more nonprofits, more businesses are not offering those programs, so the services are now being called upon by the municipality. Are the municipalities customizing residents to the service level that we currently have, and is it sustainable?
I think it depends on the municipality.
In Wetaskiwin, let's say Wetaskiwin.
So if we decided that we were going to keep our recreation, our man-locked facility open 24 hours a day, this is what it would cost to have that happen. And of course, through our budgeting process and the feedback that we have, and whether it's a formal budget meeting, or if it's just me talking to my neighbor saying, this is going to raise taxes 2%. But we're going to have access to the man-locked facility 24 hours a day. They'd be like, fantastic. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I want to be able to go to the gym, or I want to go and swim. That's great. You're getting that feedback. But it then becomes a need or a want in that community. And if you're providing something to the community that isn't meeting that level of service or their expectations, or it's too much, and they don't see the value in that, then you're going to hear about that. And if you're not hearing it firsthand during the 4 years of your term, you're going to be hearing about it at election time, because that's going to become a municipal issue, that's going to become a community issue, and somebody's going to run on that. I don't think we're going to have the Manlock Center open 24 hours a day. We're going to cut it back to 12, 15, whatever it happens to be. And this is the savings that's going to happen because of that. And that's where you get your support from, is making sure that you're in tune with what your community wants.
I want to talk about the upcoming election, because there's a lot of people right now, and I'm hearing them, and I'm assuming you're seeing it as well. If you aren't, then I'm about to burst your bubble, that are saying municipalities are spending too much, they're collecting too much money, and you've been there for the last 4 years because you're a mayor, and a few years before that as well. What do you tell new candidates who are running for council this election? Because the very first thing that they're going to have to pass is a budget. And that budget is not going to be their budget. It's going to be the budget that this current administration, this current council has dealt with. What are you telling the new crop of council candidates about this budget cycle that they should be aware of heading into a budget that is going to be very drinking from the fire hose?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, so is that if you've signed your letter of intent to run, or you plan on running, make sure you're a part of those budget discussions. Go to the open houses.
As much as you can.
Exactly. Go to the open houses. Reach out to a member of council now. Draw as much information as you possibly can, but also understand that a new council that gets elected here in October, if they're not happy with what the budget was presented, they don't have to pass it. You can pass an interim budget first part of January, continue on with what the status quo was, so that you can go through that budget again. And that was, I think, one of the things that maybe I wasn't aware of my first time on council, is that I did have that opportunity. We had 4 new members of council on, and of course, drinking from the fire hose, trying to understand the basic roles of a municipal councillor, but also what that budget looks like. And when you're spending 30, 40, 50 million dollars and saying, the previous council probably knew what they were talking about, so yeah, sure. But I think in hindsight, I probably would have pushed a little bit harder and made sure that I fully understood what that budget was that we were passing. And it aligned with what I felt we needed in our community. So I think understanding what you're getting into, understanding your role as a municipal councillor, and understanding what that budget is going to mean for the next year of your first year on council, and putting the brakes on if you need to. There are off-ramps that you can take. Of course, that takes the majority of council to be able to go in that direction, but making sure you know that that's available if you need it.
Just want to make sure I get the right number here, so I'm going to read the next question off the screen, if you don't mind if I apologize. In the report the Fraser Institute published in June finds that the per capita municipal expenditure in Alberta has reached a record $3,700 in 2023, making it the highest per resident spending in all the provinces across Canada. Why do you think that is?
I think you look again at the level of service and what a municipality is now being tasked to do.
Is this passing the buck?
No.
Because you keep on saying you have to look at the services that the province and the federal government aren't.
But also the services that a municipality is too. Okay, so have things increased that much because the demand for services has increased that much? Demand for what the cost is of that service? Are we contracting it out? Is it done in-house? Has legislation changed in how we do things? Again, you look at the number of, or the amount of infrastructure funding that we're receiving from the province has decreased as well. So there are a number of factors, and I think it would be really good for anybody conducting a survey or putting out a message like that to have a really good understanding of what municipalities are going through, and maybe talk to some of the elected officials too, and get another perspective instead of just black and white numbers and that's the end all be all.
You, and I say you in the royal you, as Alberta Municipalities and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, have been calling on the federal government for a new fiscal framework for municipalities. I know you currently have I'm going to get this wrong because it used to be called the gas tax, now it's called the community building. Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. What type of new fiscal framework is Alberta Municipalities looking for? Because with one of the highest levels of service providers in the country per capita, what are you looking for from the federal government and even the provincial government for a new fiscal framework?
I think just recognizing the growth that we're experiencing here in Alberta, things have gotten a little bit trickier in terms of agreements between the federal government and municipalities. But I don't think that changes much in terms of our needs. If we're looking at provincial priorities, when a municipality is looking at priorities, especially through the Canadian Community Building Fund, it's really important that both the federal government and provincial government understand the pressures that are being put on municipalities. And so when we're able to do overlays or reconstruct sidewalks or repair sidewalks or do our trail connectors, you go through some of the new neighborhoods now that of course go on to that developer and making sure that the community is built in the way that community feels it should be in terms of green spaces, parks, trails, and its connected systems. But we have to have that one voice, or at least we have to understand where each of these orders of government are coming from and why that funding is important. Again, it goes back to there is only one taxpayer, and we have to prioritize. And if we're going to prioritize the quality of life in Canada, not just Alberta, we have to understand that too. And there's going to be some differing views. I think that the federal government needs to look at the strains that were being placed on Alberta right now. And I think that there's an open dialogue between the federal and provincial government where maybe something might change, hopefully. But yeah, it makes it really difficult when we're fighting for scraps. And when we're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars in a federal government and billions of dollars in a provincial government versus, in most cases, tens of millions of dollars for many of the communities under 25,000 people. We can make a huge difference in a community with $25 million versus across the country for $200 billion.
Before I let you go, one final question, and it's to encompass what we've just talked about for the last half hour. I'm going to word this correctly, and I apologize if it comes out weird, but how does the future of municipalities look under the current funding model if it doesn't change?
Municipalities will continue to get the work done. There's no question in my mind. We've been resilient. We stretch dollars, I think, like no other, especially like no other order of government. All of our spending is done publicly. All of our budget deliberations are done publicly. Our audited financials at the end of the year, all of that's available. And I would challenge anybody to take a deep dive into that, understand where your dollars are going, and have a way better understanding of what a municipality is going through and the spending that they're doing. Because there is nothing, I'm not going to use a blanket statement. I can't tell you instances or regular.
Out of your members for Alberta municipalities, you're all spending wisely, right?
99.9% of us. And of course, you get those public cases where they're not doing it, but it's made public. And I think that's really important for people to understand is that municipalities are held to a very high standard. They're under a microscope. And again, you're closest to the people. It'd be really tough to get away with something crooked or nefarious if...
Do you feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place?
No, I feel like I've got a really good opportunity to overcome some of the challenges.
Tyler, always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the world of Alberta municipal budgets. Now, to stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms or by visiting us on YouTube at Cross Border Network. To learn more about the people and the communities that we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So if you can, share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs shortly. Till then, everyone.